As many of you already know, this network brings together members of parliament, members of Senate, politicians, and also civil society leaders from both sides of the Atlantic, because our purpose is to turn the tide in the international political arena, or contribute to turning the tide. And with that purpose, we think it's very important to exchange positive narratives and positive political experiences around those values that we deeply endorse and support, and many of you that are political leaders actively endorse also. So we have the pleasure to have wonderful speakers today with us, and I will immediately leave the floor to Yvonne Mieles. Yvonne is the Events and Trainer Officer of the Political Network for Values, and she has been coordinating this webinar, so she will do the introductions, and then after the three presentations from our speakers, we will open a colloquium or a debate, and then I will continue with the moderation. So Yvonne, please, you will welcome our speakers today.
Yes, thank you.
Of course, sorry, please let me remind you that you have an interpretation button down in the menu. Hay traducción simultánea en el botón de
simultaneous translation. There's a button
Spanish and
that
English.
You can press for English or Spanish.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Go ahead, Yvonne.
Thank you. So welcome to this last webinar for this period, because the next one is going to be after the summer. So we are very happy to have you today here. We're going to discuss today, like, the topic that we choose for this webinar is sex education under the microscope, criticism of gender ideology. So we are going to discuss today what is happening around the world regarding sexual education influenced by gender ideology. And for that, we're going to look for what are the consequences. We are going to listen to some testimonies. And we have like three amazing speakers today to join us in this discussion and to open the discussion. And the first one is going to be Rodrigo Iván Cortés. Rodrigo is the actual General Secretary of Political Network for Values, and he's also the president of the National Front for the Family in Mexico. He has a strong testimony regarding this, and we are very pleased to have him today as the first speaker. So, Rodrigo, thank you for being here. You have the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you. I won't speak speaking Spanish, so you can press the button for translation. I'm going to try to share. And if I can't, anyways, I'm going to continue speaking. So we're going to try to share my screen. And can you see it? Oh, perfect. Well, that's great. I'm going to try to share briefly geopolitical context and ideological of what it is, the new world order and the ESI, integral sexual education. So the first thing I need to emphasize is that controlling the population policies is like against born, like called reproductive rights, are hand in hands with the gender ideology called sexual rights. So to be punctual, how these things are together and how are they based, we need to talk about the programs that was a gathering of leaders in the UN in 1992 they were to get together in India to discuss this. So the conclusion of that event is to be effective long-term family planning programs. They need to seek to reduce fertility within the gender roles. It can't be that. We need to change the gender roles so we can reduce fertility. This is a conclusion that is very relevant because these experts, this expert for the International Parenthood Federation, these experts that the Ford Foundation brought, the Hewlett-Packard and other foundations were supporting them. They were saying that you need to reshape abortion because it's a control policy. So they need to play with gender roles and go together with that. So there are new family role models that will be non-fertile and to prevent the augmentation of population from early stages in humanity. So they let us understand through this that this has been developed after the years from 1992 and beyond until what we have today. So as we're trying to pinpoint what we have today, I'm showing this scheme that I think it kind of is a synthesis of what's going on and the dynamic that we're living in. This new order that a lot of politicians refer to, it's an expression of a new ordine, the new order. A Marxist Italian philosopher named Gramsci was the one who started this. In Novo Ordine was the name of his books, as his work, that means the new order that is projected now to the world. So we have a new normality, we have the new rights, Build Back Better, and other concepts that imply the intersection of what we can call the big corporation that are financing various events and experts who are inciting in the big governments through foundations of these groups that create certain forums. So to put in concrete speaking, we can pinpoint the forum that just happened in Spain, the Bilderberg Club. It's where these groups get together and generate this kind of policies. The World Economic Forum is also there, and in the 70s, it's the principal instance. This commission and others that have been working in these lines. So this notion of education, of integral sexual education, started before that was spoke in the UN, like the Open Society Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and others. So this interaction between foundations, forums, where you have an intersection of the big corp and big governments, start generating a propaganda that ends up being global. And it's not only a propaganda, but it's imposing itself globally. So brings us to the conclusion there are new decision makers who are not elected democratically, that have their accountants, they have accountability to no one, and they are applying precisely to these groups who are members of these big governments, like BlackRock, that has a weight, an enormous weight on the majority of the principal enterprises, and not only the private enterprises, but also through the financial institutions. When they give loans to governments, they condition these loans so they implement this kind of policies with the terms that we call new reproductive and sexual rights. So Microsoft is also there. We have to mention Microsoft made a joint venture in the 90s, in the middle of the 90s, with the Communist Party in China. This joint venture, Microsoft was receiving the openness of the Chinese market, which is very convenient for them, their economical interest. But the Communist Party in China also was asking Microsoft to install a laboratory of scientific innovation directed punctually to the birth control policies. So this is a very concrete, specific example of the objectives that they have and the impact on citizens through technology, the impact through technology to control what they buy, where they go, and etc., etc. Not Pfizer and others are in there too. This is the interaction with big government. So there's a regional and a global kind of levels. There are countries who are very important. China, Great Britain, and US are very strong, important members of this, and having an impact globally and in the UN as well. When we use expressions like a great reset, it's like they would like to have, they want to erase everything that happened before to start and construct a new, quote unquote, better than the others of the previous governments. That's why they call it the new order, because the old order needs to disappear. And this brings us to these punctual issues like the imposition of a new normality in education, in terms of all education, but specifically sexual education, and how the new rights, reproductive and sexual rights, are implemented based on thoughts of special authors that they want them to be normal. Any sexual conduct, precisely, emphatically, that is considered as non-positive, as risky, were considered like that before, but now they want it to be seen as normal. And in another hand, and the objectives of sustainable development, precisely what they want to implement, and they want to call unsustainable and criminal, all that they consider criminal and unsustainable, they needs to be vanished. So that's where the new sexual and reproductive rights come into place. Here I connect with what I was telling you about of those reunions of the experts of the Populational Forum of the UN in Bangalore, India, where the new sexual rights and reproductive rights come together and connect with each other. So this is a scheme, this is a framing of social engineering, because they want to transform the social realm. In this sense, what we are pinpointing is, it's a triple A, an agenda of alienation that is alienating family and its institutional value. Private institutions as well, and public institutions are included as well. So all this this Agenda 2030 is connecting all these dots and with the purpose of getting rid of the old order and installing a new world order. These goals, these 2030 goals, are aimed to that, and they are trying to alienate of these institutions in which there are different agendas that trying to confuse the sexuality through the different and the change gender roles to impose sexual disorder as something normal and as a right. And in terms of reproductive rights is to implement the culture of death through abortion and considering that killing of babies as a human right. There's also they're trying to say, also another agenda is to trying to save ecology and the world from its enemy number one, which is humanity. So they're trying to make relative and subordinate all faiths of people in churches. They want them to be subordinated to this agenda. So this intersection is not only the government and corporations, but also is looking for a religious spiritual agenda that is also global. So in the same time, there's a big government and a big corporation. They're trying to create a big church. So in this case, religion and faith are reinterpreted and rewrote, and Bible and other sacred documents get rewritten, and that generates a path for this sexual abortion agenda to be put into faith, into religion. So private and public instances can and are able to impose their agenda through other means. So there's a corporate government, a global corporate government that wants to be established. So this is kind of like a new God they want to create. Big church, big gov, and big corporation. They want these three things bound together as the new goal for the new worldview, and having a big brother to observe and watch what's going on in the world and be able to better control. The gender ideology, it's a transgender ideology. That idea that someone can be born in the wrong body, a man trapped in a woman's body or a woman trapped in a man's body.
Couple of minutes left. Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. So this craziness of breaking with the natural sexuality of human beings brings us, they're trying to impose dysphoria as a normal thing, and if it's to children, the youngest ones, the better. This ideologically has become through this dynamic duos. I can't go too much into that, but you can imagine when you see the work of Marx and Engels, this dynamic of clash of classes is now it became a fight against family. And also Freud and Reich are also a dynamic duo that started this sexual revolution. Then there's another duo, Marcuse and Wallerstein, that bring the new objective of the revolution, which is the youth and now the children, combining Marx and Freud, bringing it to a global scale for a global and also local revolution. So we see also the combination of what Beauvoir and Butler made. We can see how this expands rapidly in the world. We need to end to talk about Freire, because Paulo Freire is to the globally arena. He's the most important figure of the new education, that it's called liberating education, that comes from pedagogy of the oppressed. They call it also the critical pedagogy. This is very relevant that we can pinpoint how Paulo Freire, it's make an analysis of the social and political processes with a critical conscience. And the oppressed, it becomes the political activist that transformed the social realm. And it explains how that works. So the work of Freire goes from community, the base community, and the movements of without land in Brazil to the social governments, the local one, and jumps to Harvard and to the International Council of Churches, and with the financing of the Ford Foundation, and it gets to UNICEF and other UN agencies trying to promote the integral, comprehensive sexual education. And as the instrumentalization that is the dearest one in history, that has a perspective of trying to a feminist and liberationist and indigenous kind of perspective in education. But in general, what we see, it's a global agenda that goes to local realms, not through treaties, but with soft lobbying and legislators that are not aware of the importance and the gravity of this, and they make it law
Thank you,
in their
Rodrigo.
countries.
Thank you so much.
I'll
Now
stop
the
here.
next speaker is Carrie Siggin Crow. She's a member of the Montana House of Representatives, and we are very pleased to have her. Carrie, you're there, right? Yes, thank you. You have the floor, Carrie.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm working my computer correctly. I don't have my 4-year-old granddaughter here to help me. So, and I want to thank you so much for holding this webinar on the most singular, important topic of our time. There is no other issue that impedes, undermines, devalues the very fabric of our identity, that which weaves together our families, our communities, and our countries. And it is also an absolute privilege to be here alongside Ryan and Rodrigo. I'm an admirer of your passion and commitment to protecting our children, families, and communities. So thank you very much. I love the title of today's event, Sex Education Under the Microscope, Criticisms of Gender Ideology. And I'll start with the second part. There's plenty to criticize about gender ideology. In fact, Rodrigo, you just did a great job of teaching us what it looks like in today's society. But it is a theory that decimates thousands of years of experience and makes our knowledge that there are only two genders, male and female, absolutely meaningless. And what's worse, for many proponents of this line of thinking, it's not just an ideology or a theory, it's a secular religion. They fight for the religion with a vigor that might even make some of the medieval crusaders blush. Not only is dissent not allowed, but also anyone daring to express the fact that there are only two genders is vilified and ostracized. Even George Orwell would be shocked at the potency and the force that his worst fear and powerful warning have taken hold. But the first part of this title is where the irony lies: sex education under the microscope. The same folks who demand we trust science seem to have conveniently misplaced their microscopes when it comes to this topic. And you can't get much more quantifiable than gender. You can literally see who is a male and who is a female, and we usually don't need a microscope. And now our governments, teachers, and medical professionals are asking us to ignore facts in lieu of emotions. And this week, my 4-year-old granddaughter saw the flyer for this webinar. And when she saw it, my picture on it, she said, "There's Grandma." And then with no prompting, she pointed to the figures up at the top and she said, "Pink is for girls and blue is for boys." Well, my favorite color is green, so I really could care less what color people prefer. But then I did prompt her and I said, can a boy be a girl? And she said, nope. So I continued, can a girl be a boy? And she emphatically said, nope, again. Well, obviously, my statistical sample is lacking, but it shows what we already know, that the king is naked, his gender is obvious, and we don't need a microscope, well, once again, most of the time, to see the truth that is obvious to our children until our education system disrupts their innocence and convinces them that the lie that gender is fluid. The battle for the hearts and minds of our children is real. In bright red Montana, bright red conservative Montana, even truth is losing ground there. And that's part of the insanity. Who would have thought that we would be at a place where our daughters are expected to share bathrooms with men who pretend to be women? Where our state is paying for the social gender transformations of our youth? Where our children must listen to the narrative that they are not uniquely and wonderfully made, that truth does not exist, and that they shouldn't trust their parents. We live in a time where our teachers are threatened with investigations and lawsuits if they don't participate in the lies, and our parents are treated as the enemy and are not allowed to see their kids' medical, school, or library records. And our families are struggling and being emotionally manipulated with the lie that it is better to have a live son than a dead daughter. Well, how do legislators and rulemaking bodies push back on this insanity? It's a complicated question, and it's going to be different in every jurisdiction. But my foundational recommendations are, number one, be courageous. Number two, stay focused on the goals of protecting our children and families. Number three, don't be afraid to define the truth, as Rodrigo so brilliantly did today. Number four, get on the offense and keep the narrative. And number five, repeat, repeat, and repeat. And especially be courageous. Because even if you pass great legislation to protect children, families, teachers, and communities, the zealots will stop at nothing. And in our state, they find judges willing to legislate from the bench. In fact, we just had a judge in Montana tell us that our Senate Bill 458, which defines sex in two terms, male and female, is unconstitutional. And his reasoning was because the definition, which the whole bill was about, was not in the title. Some legislation that I carried in Montana to protect our children from the new onslaught of gender ideology includes, number one, ensuring that our parents are given adequate notice to opt their children out of human sexuality instruction in our schools. Number two, ensuring that parents have the right to direct their children's medical, religious, and educational upbringing. And number three, keeping our children from dangerous medical and pharmaceutical procedures that mutilate their precious bodies due to gender dysphoria. And these are just a few of the bills that we tackled in our last legislative session to protect our children and families. And together, we can speak out. We can fight back. We do not have to accept this newfound nonsense because we are on the right side of history. We know the truth, but at the same time, we cannot let this go unchallenged. People who know me know that I like to be reflective in a lot of my writing. I tend to post on social media with more than just news or quick sound bites. And recently I posted the following to my adult children. I said, men and women who serve alternate idols create chaos, resentment, anger, hurt, and bitterness for generations to come. It's the tragedy that has befallen not just our country, but the world. It's the consequences of selfish choices, and I urge you, my children, to choose a different path. Be strong, be courageous, do not fear. God created you for greatness, and He will never abandon you. And this week, while I was on an airplane, I watched the movie One Life. It's about British humanitarian Nicholas Winton, who helped Jewish children escape German-occupied Czechoslovakia in 1938 and 39. I was glad I was sitting in a row by myself because by the end of the movie, when Mr. Winton found himself in a TV studio surrounded by those whose lives he impacted by selflessly saving 669 children, I found myself actively sobbing. Mr. Winton had struggled in his later years because he always wondered if he had done enough, and he had. However, I believe we are in the same struggle for the youth of our country, and I too wonder if I am doing enough. But God created us all for greatness, and we must join together to be strong and courageous, to shun fear so that we can reject chaos, resentment, anger, hurt, and bitterness, not just for our generation, but for those who come after us. And this is our charge for such a time as this. This is our mission, and we must not fail. And I certainly look forward to making a difference with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you. Now our third speaker is Ryan T. Anderson.
Great, wonderful. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be with you. What I'd like to do in the 10 to 15 minutes that I have for some opening reflections is just kind of go through, to my mind, 8 areas of harm from gender ideology in our schools, what we've been experiencing here in the United States. And hopefully these reflections will be helpful as you're battling gender ideology in your respective nations to think through different ways in which we can communicate about the harms of these policies, these laws, to people who don't yet agree with us. I argue that we should be in the persuasion business. We're trying to persuade people who don't yet see the truth to help them to see the truth. And so the 8 areas that I want to briefly run through, I'll say 1 or 2 minutes on each, are privacy concerns, safety concerns, equality concerns, liberty concerns, family concerns, bodily and personal integrity, ideology, and then spirituality. And that way everything ends in the letter Y. All right, so first is privacy. What we're seeing in the United States is that people's privacy are being violated. Students are having their privacy violated when we establish things like bathrooms or locker rooms or dorm rooms, hotel rooms for overnight field trips, all on the base of a self-disclosed, self-determined, self-discovered identity rather than objective biology. The reason that we have separate male and female bathrooms or locker rooms or hotel rooms or dorm rooms in the first place is that they're bodily differences that make a difference. Those bodily differences make a difference when we're in a state of undressed, when we're performing intimate bodily functions. And this is why, think about the United States, we have a shameful legacy of race-based slavery and race-based discrimination. When we abolished discrimination on the basis of race, we got rid of separate facilities for Black and white. At one point, we had separate bathrooms and locker rooms, water fountains based on skin color. We got rid of those. We did not get rid of separate facilities for boys and girls, for men and women, because there are differences that make a difference when it comes to privacy. Second thing to say is that there's also a safety concern here. There have been female students in the United States who have been sexually assaulted by boys identifying as girls, who then had access to the girls' bathrooms. I'm speaking to you right now from Loudoun County, Virginia. Loudoun County, Virginia was the epicenter of this. There was a young boy accessing a female bathroom, identifying as a girl, sexually assaulted a girl, and then the school transferred him to a different school, and then he did it again. This is happening, so obviously that's in the education context. This is also happening in the prison context. We have had male inmates transferred to female prisons, and these are frequently male rapists being transferred to female prisons, and then they sexually assault female inmates. So in addition to the privacy concern, there's also a safety concern. The vast majority of sex crimes are committed by males. The vast majority of victims of sex crimes are females. And so if you allow men to enter female-only spaces, regardless of whether or not they are truly transgender, and I don't think anyone is truly transgender, so I put it in scare quotes, you're just allowing the victimizers to have ready access to victims. So that's one aspect of safety. The other aspect of safety comes with physical contact sports. Another reason why we thankfully got rid of separate athletic competitions for Black and for white, but we didn't get rid of separate athletic competitions for male and female, is that our bodies make a difference when it comes to physical competition, particularly contact sports. And so again, what we've seen in the States is that when men and women engage in things like mixed martial arts, boxing, wrestling, even basketball and soccer, where two athletes go to head a soccer ball, go to get a rebound, the male and female bodies colliding, much more a greater likelihood that the female body will be injured by the male body. That's one of the reasons why we separate the sports. That leads to the third area of concern, which is equality. Even when it's not a contact sport, it's still unfair to have men competing in women's sports. There's a reason why we have separate swimming and track competition. And the reason I mentioned swimming and track is that those are two of the areas where we in the United States have seen mediocre male athletes decide to identify as women and then win gold medals in track competitions and swimming competitions. And so even if there isn't the safety concern because the bodies aren't colliding, there's still the equality concern. And again, there are physical differences that make a difference. Fourth, there are liberty concerns, both for students and for teachers. Alliance Defending Freedom is a wonderful public interest law firm here in the United States and internationally. You should all know ADF International, which is the international version. They are representing high school teachers, college professors, and students who have all been silenced because they wanted to only speak the truth on these issues, and they refused to speak a lie. In one case, the school had been teaching gender ideology, and so a student went to school the next day wearing a t-shirt that said there are only two genders. And the student was told he couldn't wear that shirt and that he was violating the campus policies. In other cases, it's been teachers and professors who wouldn't use so-called preferred pronouns because they knew that those preferred pronouns weren't true. And that they thought they had duties both to the student who was struggling with their gender identity, but then also to everyone else in the classroom to only speak the truth and to only model their own behavior in a way that's consistent with the truth, because all of their other students are impressionable. And if they started referring to a female student as Mr. So-and-so, they would be lending their prestige as the teacher in suggesting that they actually believe a boy could be trapped in a girl's body and vice versa. So their freedom has been limited. Their liberty has been limited. Fifth, there are family concerns. There are a number of parents in the United States who have had their children socially and in some cases even hormonally transitioned without parental consent. They have dropped their student off at school, dressed as the boy that they are, dressed as the girl that they are, and then a guidance counselor at school had a separate wardrobe for them to change into. They were giving the child a new name, new pronouns. In some cases, they were even referring the child to clinics that would perform hormonal therapy. After aborting babies, the most common thing that Planned Parenthood does in the United States is perform hormonal transition, testosterone therapy for girls who want to identify as boys. So there are family concerns here, parental rights concerns, that if you're sending your kid to school and then the school is transitioning. Sixth area of harm that these policies cause are to bodily integrity, to bodily and personal integrity. It is not good, either at the personal level, just merely with social transition, to tell that a teenage girl that she's really a boy, or that she's gender fluid, or that she's gender non-binary. It isn't good for that teenage girl to be put on testosterone. It's harmful for that teenage girl to attempt to live out something that isn't true. And we've seen in the United States, young girls as young as 13 years old who have had double mastectomies. And obviously, once you have removed body parts, they don't grow back. And we now have several very courageous young women in the United States who were transitioned, who are now suing the doctors that did this to them. And many people think that some of these medical malpractice lawsuits will be the way that this ends. A seventh area of concern is ideology. Even if it's not your child that's being transitioned, even if it isn't your child that has a new name, a new wardrobe, a new the wrong sex hormones or surgery, it's still bad to teach everyone in the classroom that sex is merely, quote, assigned at birth, and that our true gender is an inner reality that we either discover or that we create, that gender is a spectrum, that gender is fluid. I mean, this changes how everyone in the school thinks about their identity and how they think about reality. And it's an entirely different catechism, right? Young people are being catechized to believe that their body has no meaning, and that the body is just a vehicle, it's just a costume, and that what actually matters are feelings. What actually matters are inner truths that we then manifest, and that the body could be wrong. And then the very last thing I'll say is a spirituality concern. Although I don't like that word, I would rather say religious concerns. Gender ideology is directly opposed to basic truths of Christianity. And it is frequently used as a way of leading people astray from Christianity. And then there are also serious challenges for people who have been harmed by a gender ideology in then reclaiming their identities and then reclaiming relationship with God. And so we also shouldn't fail to see that while there are natural and physical costs, there are also supernatural and spiritual costs to this bad ideology, and we should be sensitive to those. I think one thing that we very much need to develop, both in the United States and globally, is what does pastoral care to people with gender dysphoria look like? What does pastoral care to people who have transitioned and then detransitioned look like? Many of you hopefully are familiar with Courage. Courage is a Catholic apostolate to people with same-sex attraction. We don't yet have anything that is as sophisticated and well established. What Courage has done on the sexual orientation questions to questions of gender identity. And I have colleagues at the Ethics and Public Policy Center working on a program called the Person and Identity Project. And I commend that resource to all of you. It's much more focused on just catechizing, teaching the truth. They've been helping bishops with pastoral letters, and then helping Catholic schools with what policies should actually govern the schools, what curriculum should be used. But we also need to attend to the whole person, which would include the pastoral care. All right, and so with that, that's all I wanted to say as kind of an opening comment, just go through 8 different ways that I'm seeing the ideology harm, flesh and blood people here in the States.
Thank you, Ryan. Very clear. I don't know what happened with my connection. I want to apologize with you because I was introducing you. So Ryan is the president of the Ethics and Public Policy Center in the US. And he's also the author of the book When Harry Became Sally, which I encourage you to look for, that address an important questions regarding the transgender discourse. So thank you, Ryan, for being with us today. Now I'm gonna leave you with Lola. She's going to moderate the colloquium that we are gonna start. We have more or less 45 minutes to discuss this, to ask questions, and also to give, if you have a testimony, well, this is the moment. So Lola, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank our wonderful speakers, Rodrigo, because you helped us to understand what's going on at the global level. And many times people ask me, but why? Who is pushing this forward? No? So because it's difficult to understand, and you put it very, very clear in these interesting slides. So thank you so much. And Kerry, it's always so encouraging to listen to you, and we thank you for your courage, because I know you have suffered persecution. Rodrigo has suffered persecution for speaking the truth, and probably Ryan also, because everyone that speaks the truth, particularly on these issues, suffer persecution. So as you mentioned, Kerry, this needs lots of courage, and you have had this courage in politics, and we are actually sharing the bills you passed in Montana with other legislators from around the world in these roadmaps that we try to build and help other political leaders being inspired by your actions and your steps forward, and made, well, I'm sure that your example will be very useful for them. And of course, Ryan, thank you for speaking the truth with such clarity, and it's so helpful to put things very, very clearly, as you've been doing for so many years since this book that Yvonne just mentioned, When Harry Met Sally, which was long ago written by you, and it's amazing what has happened since then. No? So thank you all. Let me start the colloquium. We have had registered participants from 28 different countries to the webinar. I'm not sure if all of them have joined, but, and I'm not going to list all the countries, but just for you to understand that this transatlantic scope that we encourage and that we like to have. And some political leaders and civil society leaders can join us in this colloquium, and I will give you the floor immediately. But let me briefly mention that we have with us a member of the European Parliament from Croatia, Ladislav Ilcik. We have former member of Senate from Colombia, Maria del Rosario Guerra, Javier Puente, former senator from Spain, Antonio Sanchez from the Partido de Acción Nacional party in Mexico. He leads the Institute for the Common Good. Karina Espinosa is a senator from Colombia. Laura Martinez from National Front for the Family in Mexico. Cristian Aranda, he's from the party Renovación Popular in Peru. Orlando Anaya from the Partido de Acción Nacional in Mexico. We have also Lisbeth Hernandez, former senator from the PRI party in Mexico. I've seen also Angela Gandra joining. She's a former Secretary of State from Brazil. And if I miss someone, just please let me know and I will immediately give you the floor. Angela, I will change you to panelist so you may speak with the video if you wish. Because otherwise, okay, let me check if I can, maybe you can speak. Yeah,
Yes.
Angela, maybe, okay, here you are.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Angela, thank you.
Hi, thank you. So, can you see me? Can you see me or hear me?
We can listen to you. We can hear you.
We can listen to you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Lola.
Okay, I think, Angela, now you can open your camera also.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you and include some observations about Brazil, what's happening right now in this, at this moment, right? We have three great problems that are, first of all, the manipulation of people with a very bad education, public education, and ideology of gender at schools, but in a very deep way since like 4 or 5 years old, with the participation of directors and also of the teachers, and stimulating experiences between children. And when they get like around 10 or 11 years old, they stimulate to kiss each other, to see whatever they feel like, if I'm a binary, if I whatever. And when the parents go to school, they say, no, we have to leave this happen, because we have to really help them in their experience to find whatever they are, right? So this is happening, well, with a a bad education rationally. Well, they don't have intellectual resources, and this ideology of gender that creates this conflict, and also a hypersexualization in all senses, I would say, like in internet, in pornography, in cell phones, selling nudes and everything. And they don't really accompany this. There's no control. And children are in the deep web having this material. And publicly, people know that, and even the government. And the third thing is like, this is a plan. Bad education, ideology of gender, and hypersexualization to create an animal so that they can nudge people politically, with elections, and there it goes, right? So then you have like electors not working, not having education as an animal, and this is the way they manipulate. And also because if they get, kind of rational when they are older, they're going to be corrupted. And well, anyways, learning to treat human beings as means. So I've seen that in the government when I was there, but now it's like a clear strategy. So that's why I want to share. I heard about Guatemala, I heard about what is going on in other countries, but in ours, it's becoming, like a very deep stuff. So we are fighting with the parents, and we have schedules coming from the bottom to the top. But anyways, I just want to share that with you because it's a plan, and it's a very, very, detailed plan to get to each one's heart. So that's what I want to share with you. That's it.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thank you also for all the work you did while you were in government in Brazil. So thanks a lot. And I can see Lisbeth. Oh, but Lisbeth Hernandez from Mexico. Hello, Lisbeth,
Buenos
member of
días,
Senate from
Lola.
Mexico.
Buenos días desde México. Saludos a mi amigo Rodrigo Iván Cortés, que compañero de batallas a nivel internacional.
Hello to Rodrigo Iván Cortés. Thank you, Kerry Ryan. Thank you for all we can do together. However, in Mexico, we can see that this cultural battle begins through the new authorities of the extreme left that are wanting to through local legislations, leaving the international treaties in education from parents to children, or their beliefs or their faith. And well, even leaving our constitution in the fourth article, that men and right are the same in law, or the third right that talks about education in Mexico. So it's important to say that the ideological tendency is great to force all people to change the paradigm, the natural paradigm, the social paradigm, the traditional natural paradigm of what is to be a man and a woman. There are certain bills that are working against the truth, like putting the person at the center of all the rights, all the human rights. For example, there's a law called Ley de Igualdad Sustantiva that tries to define men and women as people, not men and women. And this brings a change to Mexico for education with the New Mexican School, as it is called, where the textbooks already mention the different ways of identifying for women. There's a deceit in education where parents ignore the harms of gender ideology, and they call them the inclusion rights, the new inclusion rights in schools. For example, yesterday in my city, in Cuernavaca, Morelos, approved the neutral uniform where children, kids, boys can go to school with skirts and girls can go to school with pants. And children in the rebellious state, they will use the skirts not because they are convinced, but because of their rebellious. So they talk that gender doesn't have to do with sexual liberty, freedom. These are topics that parents are ignoring, and we have to be more successful in communicating them what these things harm, how these things harm for children. Recently, conversion therapies have been banned in all the country, and this creates a persecution against parents, cult ministers, or psychologists, psychiatrists that can create this conversion therapies to this problem that is being brewed in the new government is that the woman that is going to rule over the ways of Mexico has a tendency to ideologize and this without a fear of any religion with this authoritism. We need to keep communicating these types of forums, working in the local governments as we do in social and civil groups, to understand that home is the only way of stopping this way of distorting their identity. And if you talk about the religious topics, they are banned, like what Rodrigo Ivan is suffering right now with this persecution. And when we talk about ideology, identity is becoming a crime for us. So we need to create this politics of communication so we can stop this cultural battle that is going to damage the identity of young people. Thank you very much. And
thank you,
muchas
Lisbeth.
gracias,
Thank you
Fernando.
very much.
Thank you, Lisbeth, and thank you for your courage. I remember the events you used to organize in the Senate in Mexico in favor of the family, and you've been always pushing the good agenda. So thank you. I think it's how can we change the situation? First, speaking the truth, as you very well have mentioned, our speakers have mentioned, and second, always small steps forward. Always small steps forward, as we've seen also with the example of Kerry in Montana. So maybe, I don't know if any of our colleagues would like to take the floor. I think Maria del Rosario. Yeah, thank you, Maria del Rosario. And Ladislav afterwards. Thank you.
Gracias, Lola. Nuevamente a ti.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you and the team for calling us into this webinar. Thank you to Rodrigo and Ryan and Carrie for their lectures. I want to make three reflections. The first one is the objective of the millennium, the Agenda 2030, has a positive things in terms of helping poverty to diminish, but there are concerns and challenges, as Rodrigo was talking about, in terms of reproductive and sexual education. I think it's I think it's point 5 or 6 of the agenda, something like that. But the importance is that we need to support the organizations that are fighting to bring the voice of many institutions and people in defense of family, women, the dignity of human beings, and parents' rights. And there are certain things that have been achieved, but if we unite around these instances, it's very important to have a voice like we had in Paraguay with the OEA, to bring a resolution that it was achieved, that move was a positive one. And also the debates in United Nations, all this is positive. So it's important that we need to support these initiatives that are being present, ONGs, people who are making presence, and they're promoting identity and values, the ones that we believe, the defense of the dignity of peoples. The second reflection is that in Latin America, there's a change in governments going towards governments that defend life and family and dignity and parents. This shouldn't go out of the agendas of these governments. How can we help these governments that one way or another they had identified to bring forth these topics? My invitation is to the 5 or 6 governments, are new of them in Latin America, that are inclined to the values that we've been promoting, life, family, etc. And the third reflection is that let's strengthen the union of churches and social leaders in our countries and political leaders to make our voice heard. In 2016, Colombia has a very big mobilization, a social mobilization that have ever been in its history. And the leaders were professors, parents, and church leaders to say no to gender ideology. And the textbooks that were used in schools that were promoting things like oral sex and things that are clearly are promoting an exaltation of homosexuality. Each country is doing their own effort, but how can we get together and strengthen our efforts and have us joined by organization and to participate in OEA and the UN and other places where we can defend principles and parents and fundamental liberties of the person that are bringing us together today. Thank you, Lola. Very, very important. This space is very, very important.
So thanks a lot, Maria del Rosario. And this is the purpose of the Political Network for Values, as you very well know, because thanks to you, we organized our 3rd Transatlantic Summit in the Congress of the Republic of Colombia in Bogota. And we will organize the next one in Spain, in Madrid, God willing, in December. So Ladislav, before member of the European Parliament from Croatia, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you for this webinar. It's a really important topic, the most important, as Carrie has said. So I'm in this sexual education for 29 years, and actually my political engagement as a member of Croatian Parliament and now as a member of European Parliament is actually a consequence of this, what I did with sexual education. So we experienced all of these attacks from these LGBT organizations, feminist juridical processes, but also a lot of success. So, for example, when our program was one of the 2 programs in schools, and when parents could choose between 2 programs, in spite of the big media campaign against our program, 89% of parents have chosen our program. But to the topic. So let's say this: we are losing. We have to be very open about that. We are losing on political level, losing on media level. So most media is on their side. We are losing on NGO level because their NGOs have much more money. We are also losing on academic level. There are much more and more universities that are on their side, very openly and very aggressively on their side. But still, I am very optimistic because first, Ryan has said truth on our side. So it's not that we are owner of the truth, but we promote the truth and they promote lies. And Rodrigo explained very nicely at the beginning the wider situation and how it is all connected. But I would just like to give some conclusions what I have in my head. So first, since we are losing, we cannot expect that we shall now save all children from this crazy comprehensive sexual education and gender theory. So it is currently not possible. So we have to play on the card of pluralism. So we have to say, you're not supposed to impose your program to my children. And it is much easier if we have our own program or our own programs, because if we have the pluralism and if the parents have to choose between their program and nothing, let's say parents will do it at home, then it's much more difficult. So it's much easier if we have our own program, and then if we can say, parents can choose between two programs. And there are good programs. Personally, I am the leader of Teen Star program, which is international program, and it's really a good program. It's completely in line with Christian teachings and with values, and it's helpful because even when you have good parents during puberty and adolescence, children want to. So parents are never the only source. So it means there are always different sources. Difference is better than without. So that the first conclude then that good programs that we promote, that we proactively work for our programs. Then of course, the other conclusion is parental rights, and all about that. So I won't be that long. And thirdly, we have to, and this webinar is that's why very important. We have to promote this truth, because I will say that openly. So gender theory is a lie. Gender theory is a lie. Change of sex is a lie. So, and we have to be very vocative about that. We have to speak openly about that on political level, on media, and even if sometimes we don't succeed in some projects, but we shall, like we didn't succeed with this Istanbul Convention in Croatia when we started the referendum, but we didn't collect enough signatures, but the mindset has changed. So we have to be very, very stubborn and very, very strong in promoting the truth. Thank you.
Absolutely, Ladislav. Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, we have to propose our own program because we have a better story to tell and much positive than the one that they are trying to impose. So thank you very much. We have also Karina Espinosa, a member of Senate from Colombia, who has asked for the floor. Karina, thank you.
Bueno, muy buenos días a todos. Gracias, Gracias, Lola, María.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lola. Thank you, Maria del Rosario, Rodrigo, all the people here present. A difference from Mexico. I have better news. In Colombia, we have been fighting nonstop for the reconvention therapies, and we reactivated the project of law. So there's the first debate on the Senate passed, and then there's on the plenary votes soon. We're very few Congress people. We have like 50 Congress members. There are 3 of us that are fighting for this topic of education. We're all concerned, and all of us here are worried about what's going on. Maybe we feel that we're losing the battles in our countries. Like in Colombia, the Constitutional Court has a thought like going towards the left regarding abortion, and we've been fighting that too, and we were able to stop we're stopping this dignity houses that they called it, because they were abortion centers. We were able to stop those. So we've been playing goalie, like in soccer. There's also the cannabis regulation that we've been fighting. We've been trying to put the project of law, and we've been successful a couple of times. Even though we have a left-wing government, we've been able to stop these initiatives that are very damaging. So there's also the transgender laws that we were concerned about, and an equality proposition that we were able to stop. We cannot just stop in just speaking. We need to go for actions. If they have a plan, a 2030 plan, we need to have our own strategies and our plans. In UN and every country, we are the majority of people. We haven't realized that. If we go to Colombia, let's talk about faithful people, believers. It's more than 90% of Catholics. If we are the majority, how do we feel like if we are a minority? We need to get together, all Christians and Catholics. We need to be supported by the church. If we have a contact in the church with the Pope or bishops, we need to work hand in hand with churches. They're strong, but we need to put out there our strength. How can they be presenting a gay pride with marches? They're horrible. If I can find an adjective to it. And there are even gay people who say that is not representing me. How can we come out? How cannot we come out and express our opinions? And because we're convinced that we are right, that we're in the truth, that there's men and women. This is what binds us together, and we are the majority. We need to be able to call everybody around the world and find a strategy and leave passivity. I'm worried about media and for the internet, and we need to bet on education. I will invite everybody. We're going to have a meeting in Spain, in Madrid. I think it's in December. That we should have strategies coming out from that reunion, and we'll need to start making meetings, smaller meetings with strategies and strong action. We need to have our plan. It is not possible that the minority is damaging the majority, family, and society. I'm a senator in Colombia from a liberal party, and I'm criticized by my own party. And there are women in my party that says that I'm ultra conservative, ultra right wing. I'm just a liberal, a woman of state. I'm a constructivist, not deconstructionist. We want to build and construct society. Liberals cannot be represented by only the gender ideology. This is a senator in Colombia you can count on. I'm bringing up the fight. And we have another conservative senator, Giraldo, that has been with us, and Luis Miguel Lopez, that has been with us in New York. And we have been bringing this fight. And we're trying to score goals, and these goals are made with actions. And I'm hoping that from the Madrid meeting, we need to come up with a plan, with a strategy. Thank you, Lola. Thank you, everybody.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Karina, because yes, absolutely. I absolutely agree with your proposal. And yes, we are convening our next Transatlantic Summit, focusing on freedom and the culture of life. It will be in Madrid on December 2. So I hope you will be there, of course, and we have to prepare. And we prepare these roadmaps in order to exchange the good policies that all of you are implementing in your countries and that can be useful for the other politicians. So thanks a lot. And we have a question in the chat. I'm not sure if it's for Ladislav or in general on what are the alternative programs on sexual education. And Beatriz Amaya has shared one of the programs, yes. I don't know if Ladislav, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Maybe you can explain a little bit.
I just have to say that these programs can be really wonderful. First, and if you want to know, my schedule as a member of the European Parliament was really fulfilled, but still I had the time to lead further and further the program at our Catholic school in Varaždin, because it is fulfilled for me too, so it is really for children important to get the knowledge, but also to get values, and children are eager to speak about values. So it is not just like these experts, as they say, say that they just want to give information about their sexuality. It's values, it's behavior, how they will date, when they will start with sexual intercourse, why, what is the meaning of sexual intercourse, why marriage is important, why family is important, and so on. So it's really, there are really good programs. I can promote, of course, Teen Star program, because I deal with this program for, as I said, 29 years. And it is really a wonderful program. So we can do a lot with this, and because sometimes even priests in churches and so are a little bit afraid of speaking about sexuality, because they are afraid of being attacked, and then we come to also in church, when we have the clear teaching of the church about sexuality, that people are afraid to say this part of teaching, because they could be not understood correctly. But still, I think that we have to promote these programs, because everything starts with sexuality. If we don't increase the capability for love, and that's the point, if we put pleasure as a criteria of behavior, the only criteria of behavior, if our will, we had these debates in European Parliament where all these leftists wanted to put, their will as their right, if they want something like a spoiled child, and then there is this right, and so on. So in this mindset, capability of love decreases. So we have to increase the capability for love among children. So capability for sacrifice, to understand that sacrifice with sexuality and oral personality is very important, and they can understand that. They can understand, and when you approach them really politely and with questions and so on. So I think, as I said, I'm really an optimist concerning this, and I think that more and more people understand the lies of gender identity, of this gender theory and so on. So as I said, I'm really an optimist, and I really think that we have to work on our programs and fight for our programs, and then we can say, because that was the way we succeeded in Croatia. They wanted to impose their program to our children, and then we said, but we have our own program, so it's not that we want to block information from our children, so we want our children to have program, but our program. You have your program for your children if you have it, but they don't have children. My wife and me have 6 children, so we can fight for our children, to have our program, and that is what people understand. So as I said, we have to fight for our program.
Thank you very much, Ladislav. Also, Beatriz Amaya from Paraguay mentions another program in the chat. So And so we have only a few more minutes. Cristian Aranda from Peru, from the party Renovación Popular party in Peru. And then I very briefly will open the microphone for John from Guatemala, who is asking from the participants. So, Cristian, adelante.
¿Cómo estás, Lola? Buenos días.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for this space, and hello to everyone in this beautiful conversation. So, to use the few minutes that I have, I'd like to talk about their experience in Peru. Well, for decades, we have been asleep. We didn't see this coming. But this silent battle from progressism and globalist agendas in their countries, and this left-wing agendas were penetrated in their politics through legislation and through several cultural components, through media, through literature, through television, through radio, and we saw with some concern the European experiences and the United States experiences, and how this scenario was the stage was becoming a little bit different in Latin America. We saw a breakpoint in 2021. In this year, we came to our country to a we were full of this thing. Progressist movements became bold, and in the country we suffered several changes in legislative matters, several attempts to legislate abortion in different ways, homosexual marriage, the alienation of parents through observation of sexual material in schools, the school products that were given to young people, and an attack to the armed forces in Peru. This was so violent through progressism that this created a calling for Christian movements, Catholic movements, conservative movements. And in 2021, the right wing was only preoccupied for the custody of the economical wakes up against these other rights, and the left wing is divided into several parts, which a part of it was taking part in this, or preoccupied for these topics. In 2021, we see parties that are that take, or that question and watch over the income of the 2030 agenda in our country. We could say that in a certain way we are making resistance. We're resisting in Peru in these last years, from 2021 and nowadays. There have been several things, revindication of the armed forces. We have given them the right place that they should have historically. They were attacked during the years the left wing governed our country. Civil associations in the society, for example, Catholics and evangelic families are associations. They try to join together fight a bigger enemy, and we were able to fight against it. Right now, through a bill that has been passed, families can supervise the public policies in matters in sexual matters, and particularly the textbooks that are given to children in schools. This is an important victory. The inclusive language has been eliminated, that was incorporated from all official texts and from all government communication. Abortion was stopped. Therapeutical abortion is approved, but the other ways are not approved. In movies, there was made a bill has been made that regulates the income for movies or for cinematographic products. It's not that they cannot be made, but they will lose the subsidiary help that they were receiving from the government. So this has altered the progressist sector in a big way, and this is a way of making front of it, fighting against it. Now, to reinforce the newborn was considered as a human, and this has been legalized, and to protect the human being from the moment of conception. There's a lot to do, but in Peru we have the hope that as long as we maintain ourselves alert and we keep fighting, we will be able to defend our country of this inferential movement that try to enter in our country and try to make roots here in the country. And with relative joy, I would like to share that executive or legislative, they have decided to create a speech in which they rejected from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights of this progressist attempt. It's very relevant, and nowadays our country is becoming bold against these attempts of fighting against this, to impose agendas that our country, human rights that our country doesn't share.
Muchas gracias,
That's all.
Christian. Thank you very much. And unfortunately, we ran out of time and we have to finish on time. But I really thank you for this so interesting webinar, for all your contributions to the colloquium, which are so interesting and give us this broad international perspective and how we can encourage each other and learn from each other. So let's stay in touch, and we hope to see you again soon after the summer. So thank you, and see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you all.